During the 16 days of activism, our members will once more be using their presence and their influence at the heart of local communities to highlight the alarming and unacceptable prevalence of violence against women and engaging with their local communities. In my own area, Gwent Federation, there will be a light a candle service taking place this Wednesday in St Mary's Church in Usk. Also this year, our 5 federations in the north of Wales have come together to organise an event in Llandudno. This will mark the 16th day of activism, the start of it. This will be taking place on Saturday from 11 AM until 1 in St John's Methodist Church. Our 3 federations in Powys will also be taking part in the 4 walks being organised by Powys County Council in different areas of the county to mark International White Ribbon Day and the White Ribbon Campaign. To conclude, violence against women is a violation of women's human rights, and the WI will not stand by in silence. I'm determined that we use the power of the WI to make a lasting difference and help create a future free of violence for women and girls. Now, as many of you know that have been here before these previous events, every year we launch a competition linked to the Not In My Name campaign, and we use this platform to announce the results. If you've been up for coffee, you've already seen the evidence of that. This year's competition was to design and make a tote bag depicting the campaign. We received 30 entries, and these are all on display. If you haven't already had a chance to look at the entries, please do try before you leave. And at this point, I'm delighted to announce the winner of the competition. I just want to say a bit more about the winning entry. It's a beautiful bag. It's absolutely incredibly technical in its detail. The messages on the bag must have taken ages to work for the person who made it to work their way through it. And I have to say, this is not her first go. As you can see, it's beautifully crafted. The messages are clear on it and use some of the words that survivors often use. She also makes bags for another organisation called Hidden Heroes, and this is not her first award. She has received an award also from Hidden Heroes for the work she did in making bags to raise funds this time. So the winner of the competition is Barbara Pearce. She's from Hilperton WI in the Wiltshire Federation, and I'm delighted that Barbara has joined us today, and I'd like to invite her to come forward to receive her certificate. So huge congratulations to Barbara.
Let's just say how I started making bags. How I came into making bags. Oh, sorry. How I came into making bags was at the start of COVID. I did all the scrubs for the RUH in Bath. There was a team of us. And then I got to know this charity called Families Out Loud that help people that have suffered from either drugs or alcohol in their families. And it's happened in our family. And they have been absolutely amazing to help me. And that's how I started my bags. I first did face masks, Christmas face masks. And during those 3 months, I made £1,000 for the charity. And then I've gone on to make bags. And in making the bags for the charity, I could now make the bag for this lovely, can't think of the word, organisation that's, that's across our country, across the world. And I'm pleased that I could share my thoughts and put this out for people to see.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
So just for completeness, the runners-up in second place is Christine O'Kell, Ringway and Help Arms, WI, Cheshire Federation. And in third place, Jackie Brown, Fronghook WI, Gwynedd Merioneth Federation. Huge congratulations to all members who entered the competition, and all entries will be promoted on our social media channel during the 16 days of activism. So, well done to Barbara. I think it's a tremendous entry. We're now moving on to our first speaker, which is Joanna Robinson, who is the National VAWDASV Advisor, Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence. Joanna was appointed to the role in July 22 and undertakes the role on a job share basis with Yasmin Khan. Joanna has over 25 years experience working within social justice, including with women exploited through sex work, sexual violence services, and refugee women. So, Joanna, if you'd like to come and speak.
Before you speak, Joanna, I'm having reports that people can't hear us online. Has that been sorted? Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I would like to say I'm really pleased to be here, and I am. It's a huge humbling experience, and absolutely appreciate that everyone in this room on a daily basis contributes massively to addressing violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence in Wales. I really don't like doing these kind of things, but I recognise that it's within the role. So I think for me today, really who I'm speaking to is not all of you, though. It's about the point that was raised earlier about changing attitudes. So I could start, as I intended, with the fact that the recent policing assessment of the situation recognised that there's 117 crimes every hour reported of violence against women and girls in England and Wales. And when you recognise that only 25% roughly of actual crimes are recorded, that's 4 million crimes a year. Now, we all know this, but do others? And that's a big question for me. When Estin did the report on We Don't Tell Our Teachers of the experiences of girls in secondary schools, 61% said that they had experienced sexual harassment. But they also said that they didn't think it was something to be reporting. They also said it was very normalised. So how real is that 61%? So what we're dealing with is something that is underreported, under-recognised, and we have to do something about that. We have to change it. And if we look at the Sound campaign, there is something significant that I, in my role, have reflected on that I haven't been considering. And I think that potentially many of us haven't either. Some of that will be because we know the issues, we accept the issues, we're passionate about them, and we want change, and we have a determined way to do it. But that's left out a huge number of people out of the picture of feeling the responsibility to do something about it. So in the development of the Sound campaign that looked at 18 to 54-year-old men in Wales, it found that 64% believe that violence against women and girls is less common than it actually is. But 50% believe that it's more common, more prevalent for men. Then when we look further at that about attitudes, 39% believe that equality for women has led to discrimination for men, which is quite disappointing. And in that context, how are we going to persuade men and boys to take responsibility, be that in our workplace, be that in our schools, be that on the street, be that for me, I'll own my most recent experience in a football ground. I don't know if you saw it, if you saw the news that came out of it, just Google my name and Cardiff City and it'll come up. I perhaps shouldn't have looked at some of the social media, but I did because I was interested. And I had some of the same stuff that I know people have all of the time, My age was commented on, my level of attractiveness was commented on. How could it be me, of all people, on that day, in that huge crowd? I asked the same question myself. Why me? Why me in that moment? And the fact is that we know it happens all of the time. And it shouldn't be a debate about whether it happens or doesn't happen. For me, the debate is, why did the men next to me not do anything about it? Why did people feel like it's possible to say, you should consider yourself lucky? Why was it all on me? Why did I hear in my park in the next day, oh yeah, my mates and I were talking about it, and my friends asked, did you go too far? Did I go too far? How are we at this point? So I'm recognizing a bit of failure in myself in this, is that we haven't got those discussions going where we are able to persuade people, because the evidence is that if a man had stepped in for me at that point, I would have been far more successful in addressing that. Women and girls don't feel safe to do it on our own, but actually also the evidence is that men and boys don't listen to us because we're moany, we're not taking the compliment, you know, we need to lighten up, we need to just smile, all of these things. And all of us here know today that this is a spectrum of behaviours, that we have a tolerance for this, and that is how some of the higher harms are experienced. That's how people question, really, was that rape? Was it? Is it that bad? So we have to do something about it. So the positive that was also discovered, because it is important that we have positives, is that of the men and boys surveyed, 72% believe that violence against women is a major problem. So whilst they might not be recognising the numbers, they do see that there is a problem. And they are also protective of their sisters, their female family members and their friends. So we need to work with that, don't we? We need to help them to recognise. So of the 4 million, all of them will have men and boys attached to them. So how do they feel about that? And when we look at, you know, and I've been looking for some kind of people to inspire, and I remember coming here to see David and Sally Challen speak, you know, and he's been a huge advocate of this, and his messages are really strong. But I would argue that potentially he's joined the space where we're all talking to each other. And Frank Mullane, he's also been fantastic in this space. But again, is he appealing to those that aren't listening to the messages as they are? But I have discovered a comedian, Daniel Sloss, and I would encourage you all to look. And his attitudes have been changed, like so many, because he was affected. But he's also the only comedian who spoke out against Russell Brand. And the reason he did that was because his friend raped his friend. And he then took the step to reflect on what he did. And he's realized now, and his words are, that he has to live with this till the day he dies, because he knew that his friend's behavior was indicating harm, but he didn't do anything about it. And for me, what he says is just really valuable. When 1 in 10 men are bad and the other 9 do nothing, then they might as well not be there. You have to act to actually do good. So how do we inspire more men and boys to feel this? The Sound campaign is doing part of it, but I think equally all of us can. We can be talking to people about our experiences. It is uncomfortable. I've been honest about my football experience. I've also been honest that I was raped in university. And I know every woman I speak to has an experience. Anyone that I open up to and I make myself vulnerable in that space allows them to tell me things. I've been told it ahead of being interviewed for the BBC by somebody working there in that day because they felt able to tell me. I've been told it by friends because the circumstances of the things that happen to me are not unusual. The only unusual thing is that I've said about it. So how do we help people to understand the gravity of what we're dealing with, but also that it's important for them, that they are there, that they do step in, that they do things differently. And, you know, I have my own little bit of inspiration in that I have a 15-year-old son who told me that Tate was great, that he didn't like feminists and made me despair and wonder what on earth I was doing in life. But his friends, actually, I feel real lucky because when I looked on social media, they were the ones who told people to shut up and get away. And that was a really proud moment for me because I'm really worried about them. They face something that I've never experienced before. So there are definitely ways to appeal to men and boys. And also, when we think about things, you know, how do we make this a possible space for men and boys to experience things? And we can do it. Again, to speak of my own son's experience, he felt comfortable enough in his English recent assessment. His teacher, a woman, he feels respected by her, he feels safe. which is something that we're hearing that men and boys don't feel to be able to talk about this stuff. But he's written his best ever essay on the desensitization of boys by porn. So we have to make these spaces, yeah? Me telling him, it's really bad, it happens to loads of people, it happened to me, doesn't give him that space. So let's think about how we make that possible, how we create these ideas for change, and let's support it. I'm not saying we need to tolerate things, I'm saying let's have a conversation to make it different. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
gives
much.
me, following that, it is going to be tricky, but we got the right person to follow it, because I'm now delighted to welcome Jane Hutt, our Minister for Social Justice. Jane has been a lifelong and tireless campaigner for social justice, co-founding the first women's refuge in Wales, and she's been a member of the Welsh Government since it began. And she's kept this agenda at the forefront of our programme of work. Great.
Well, bore da I chi gyd, and good morning to you all, and thank you very much. Oh, Prynhawn, I do give it. So thank you so much, Joyce. And I'm really pleased I managed to get here to hear Joanna. That was an inspirational speech, and it's so good that we've got independent, and that's an important word, independent national advisors, which was very much part of the founding legislation, the Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Act of 2015. So good to be here. I say so good to be here, but you know, I've been here on this platform year after year, haven't I, with Joyce Watson taking the lead. And our wonderful National Federation of Women's Institutes. And thank you so much again for that co-hosting. And I can see members of the Women's Institutes here today from across the counties and areas. And I just think I always see the WI as a real campaigning organisation for women and women's rights. And we see that as we come together today. And we'll be together, of course, at the vigil tonight. But yes, it is an opportunity coming here in November, late November, as we come together when we recognise, acknowledge, we mark the United Nations Day to eliminate violence against women. It's an opportunity really, as far as you're concerned and I'm concerned, to update as government minister responsible, lead government minister. It's very much cross-government responsibility, but lead minister as Minister for Social Justice in terms of what we're doing. And I will give you an update on what we're doing to tackle the scourge of violence against women and girls. And we've heard already those shocking feedback from the research, the statistics and the lived experience, as Jo has described. It's an opportunity to question and challenge me as well. Only a couple of weeks ago, I gave a statement, an oral statement, as we call it, in the chamber, so that members can say to me, question me, what are you not doing enough, and how can you address this issue? It's always really important that Joyce is there to be strong in her call for action, as she always is. But it's a cross-party, across the chamber. We get very strong calls for action. And I think it is a point coming together today for us to remember, yes, some of us may have more power and responsibility than others, but we all have power and responsibility in our own lives, as well as if we happen to be have a position of authority as well. So I know you all feel that. Actually, I also see we've got councillors here today as well. We've got people at every level, and of course our colleagues and friends from policing and fire services. Crucial that you're all here together. So, once again, thank you for bringing us together, and I know tonight will be a very powerful event. But just again to restate our position in the Welsh Government, we've always been clear. We want an end to violence against women and girls, and we are ambitious and motivated in our plans to make Wales the safest place to be a woman. we published our 5-year national strategy last May, and the strategy was developed alongside those key partner organisations, including the police, specialist sector and survivors, as well as many people at this meeting. Also, we have developed this new collaboration, what we call a blueprint approach, that brings devolved and non-devolved organisations together, strengthening the partnership between the public, specialist and private sector. And I think a blueprint approach is much more multi-agency. It's looking at how we can address this together, because I mean, all those years back when I was helping to set up Women's Aid in Wales, we knew that if we didn't have criminal justice on our side, if we didn't have the police, the courts, we weren't great. We were only going to do half the work that was needed in terms of our responsibilities. And of course, yes, we have responsibility for funding and supporting specialist sector, for housing, social services, health service, and local government. But actually, we need to come together. It's not devolved, criminal justice, although we would like it to be devolved. That's the progress of our journey of devolution. But we must work together. That sustainable whole system approach to actually tackle street harassment, safety in public places, tackling perpetration, workplace harassment, supporting children, young people and older people. These are all the work streams now in our refreshed strategy. And the specialist sector, and it's great, we're going to hear from Welsh Women's Aid, playing a vital role across the whole blueprint. So as we focus our discussions today around sustainable whole system approach, bringing everyone together, again, I want to restate our commitment to improving the ways in which commissioners across all sectors, again, can work together to have that joined up approach to violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence. How do we ensure that decisions we make are based on evidence? How do we ensure that funding is actually reaching those who most need it and having the greatest impact? How do we ensure that decisions understand the effect they have on how we deliver services in Wales? That's part of all the ways in which we're looking at how we design this strategic and sustainable system. Nobody wants to go from year to year, from month to month, worrying about where the funding is coming from, who's responsible, who's playing a partnership, who's part of that partnership to deliver support and to address the issues. So the system must have the right structures for understanding need, planning and procurement across the whole of Wales. And we have a national strategy that is aiming to ensure that all aspects now of VADA SV are equally considered. We're concerned about the public as well as the domestic sphere. We're concerned about all aspects of violence against women and girls, sexual violence as well as domestic abuse, street harassment as well as coercive control. And our strategy aims to take a whole society approach to ending violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence. So we need to have local, regional and national arrangements to deliver these objectives. So we have the work stream on this is looking about how we can strengthen the delivery of the services that are provided and the partnership between the devolved partners and non-devolved partners. So it's great that I'm in many meetings where we have police leads, we have our police and crime commissioners and operational police leads working alongside local government, our specialist sector, looking at all these issues. And of course, we do have our Live Fear Free campaign that's raising awareness of stalking, harassment, abuse and violence against women and girls in all aspects of life, including the workplace, the street and other public places. So we've taken on this wider public sphere. And of course, Joe, you gave us such evidence very vividly of your experience. And as you say, so many will be experiencing that in the same way. We have got to join up in terms of that public and private personal experience of violence. So all of our campaigns are about providing practical advice for those who are suffering abuse, highlighting the support that's available. enabling friends, family and the wider community to recognise abuse and take action. And we do want to encourage all men to listen to women and learn to be allies. I mean, that's a really important word, ally, isn't it? To be our allies. Help us end this epidemic of violence and abuse. Help us make this change. It is a collective effort that we need, and women and girls must not be expected to bear the burden of tackling violence anymore. We're very pleased that we're rolling out a curriculum now in Wales, a new curriculum, and some of you might have children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews who are experiencing, I think, the powerful impact of the relationships and sexuality education stream in the curriculum, which is about how do you develop respect? How do children develop respect for each other? Education is key, as you all know, to that. So we've got great hopes for that curriculum, but also the work that's been done by Spectrum and others in schools, so powerfully, so important. But I think the final words from me as we do, and this is the message which was always given at this time of the year, but it should be every day. We need men to never commit, condone, or remain silent about violence against women. And by empowering men to challenge these behaviours at their earliest stages, we can stamp out the harmful and wide-ranging impacts of violence against women and girls. Let's not be bystanders. Let's empower and educate. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jane. You've given us a lot to think about. It's good to hear about what's been planned, what the aim is. It's also really, really good to hear about the cross-party commitment to this campaign. It's heartwarming. Thank you. So moving on, we've got our final speaker, which is Deb Critchley from Welsh Women's Aid. Deb has worked in the VAWDASV sector for 23 years and is currently head of project development for the Change That Lasts model, a whole system societal approach towards ending violence against women. So Deb, if you'd like to speak.
Pnawn da pawb, nice iawn bod yma. Good afternoon, everybody. Very nice to be here. I'm Deb Critchley, Head of Project Development at Welsh Women's Aid, and I work for the Change That Lasts team. Thank you very much for the invite to speak today on the International Day for the Elimination of Ending Violence Against Women and for the elimination of violence, ending violence against women and girls, White Ribbon Day. So our mission at Welsh Women's Aid, for those that might not know much about us, is to work towards a world where violence against women and girls doesn't exist. And we know that violence against women and girls is a global problem. So today I'm going to talk to you about our Change That Lasts project. We do have that whole system societal approach, but in particular, I'm going to talk to you about our community initiative, which is known as Ask Me. And I'm going to let you know what our Ask Me community is actually doing to end violence against women and girls. So what is Ask Me? Ask Me is a community course, so it's aimed at members of the public, so anybody, female or male, that has an interest in ending violence against women and girls. So it's designed for the public to raise awareness of these issues and give people the knowledge of the issues and how to have these difficult conversations. So it's a day's training course where people understand more about the realities of violence against women and girls. They understand how to have these difficult conversations, and we call that breaking the silence and raising awareness. And we support them to have these conversations in a way that does no further harm. So they get a lot of knowledge and a specific set of skills. And then after the one-day training course, they go away and they raise awareness and break the silence in their own communities. But we are very mindful that they do it in a way that causes no further harm to survivors. So the idea is we're improving responses throughout Wales to survivors. And we know it is so important that we train the community. Countless domestic homicide reviews have shown us that the community, and by that I mean friends, family, workmates, social groups, knew something wasn't right in somebody's relationship, but they didn't know what to do or say, and so often the response was silence. So we know that, and that's how the Ask Me part of our whole systems approach came into being, to skill up the community so that they could break the silence, rather than the onus being on the survivor all the time to break the silence. So it's training and support to deal with those difficult situations. Oh, I've just realised I haven't done my clicker. That there is our whole systems approach, and the bit I'm talking about today is the Ask Me strand, but so much work goes on at Welsh Women's Aid to try and tackle violence against women and girls. The Ask Me community are so important because we know if we are going to make societal change, it's got to start with the community, and agencies alone can't tackle this. It needs to be all of us as a society. So the course teaches people to recognise sexual violence, controlling coercive behaviour, domestic abuse, misogyny, and we teach them principles like gender inequality is both the cause and consequence of domestic abuse. So it's not just about intimate relationships and there's something wrong with that couple. We know that we live in a society that condones and allows violence against women and girls to flourish. We also know that the community response is so very important for prevention, and that the community can either open that doorway to further support, so by creating those safe spaces that people feel safe to disclose, or by trying to shut a conversation down because they don't know what to do or say. So the community, if we're thinking about true prevention, are absolutely key. And we also know that when we look at domestic homicide reviews, as I said, the family, friends, people around you but didn't know what to do or say. And we know that sometimes the advice given was very well-meaning, but actually could cause further risk. So it could be advice like, well, you know, he might be stalking you, but if, you know, he'll get bored if you ignore him, and, you know, well-meaning advice, but actually can be quite dangerous. So we teach the Ask Me community how to be safe when they're breaking the silence, raising awareness or taking a disclosure. So the idea of our Ask Me community was to remove barriers to help seeking, to seek to change culture and public attitudes, to empower communities themselves to seek, design and deliver their own solutions to preventing violence against women and girls. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in practice, because our Ask Me project initiative has been going since 2018. And I've been in the sector for an awful long time, and I've seen so many projects come and go. And I'm really proud that Ask Me is going strong. It's available in North Wales, and that's funded by the Waterloo Foundation. And it's available in South Wales, funded by South Wales PCC. So what are the Ask Me community actually doing? Well, what I love about Ask Me is this it's very hopes-based, action-focused programme where people are learning about the realities and then going out and doing something about it. And I've been putting together a bit of a report lately over the last few years of the project and looking what the Ask Me community are doing off their own back, with ongoing support from us, because Ask Me is more than a training course. It's also an ongoing scheme as well that gets support from either Welsh Women's Aid or the partners that work with us to deliver this, because we can't do it alone. Our members support us with this. So over the past few years, the Ask Me community have distributed over 7,000 pieces of literature, and that could be posters, stickers, Ask Me business cards, anybody they come into contact with. So that is how they're breaking the silence and raising awareness. They've reached over 16,000 individuals through activities such as giving talks, challenging stereotypes, maybe in conversations, challenging victim blamings, and they've reached 57,000 people through social media posts as well. So when I say it's hopes-based and action-focused, it truly is. They've shared information with and signposted roughly 1,500 survivors over the past few years, and also spoke to 81 individuals who are actually concerned about their own attitudes and beliefs towards women, and they've signposted them appropriately. And they've also signposted to various services such as the Live Fear Free helpline, Mind, Respect, etc. And something that I think is so important to point out, from October 2018 to October this year, 2,459 community members were spoken to and signposted by the Ask Me community, but actually 725 of those people were people who were disclosing for the first time ever. And I think that's pretty amazing, actually, that when we think about prevention and early intervention, actually, for me, Ask Me really does get in there very, very early. And I don't have a crystal ball to know whether some of those 725 people would have gone on to be the subject of multi-agency risk assessment conferences. But even if a quarter of those had that prevention, just think in terms of the money saving and also the emotional saving as well that we've saved ourselves as a country. And in their own words, what are the Ask Me community doing? So I've just got a few quotes. I spoke to a friend who felt embarrassed and ashamed after being catfished on a dating site. I helped provide her with the perspective that it wasn't her that had done wrong, but it was the person that had catfished her. And I know, having worked with survivors for years, the shame something like this would cause, and having a conversation with the Ask Me community member can take that shame away. Somebody else says, I'm creating more awareness in Black and minority communities about exploiting opportunities to normalise conversations about domestic abuse and violence. Barbie movie was a great prompt for a conversation as well. So Ask Me are out there all the time using their skills and knowledge to break the silence. And it can be those small conversations that they're supported to have, or it can have a wider impact. One of our Ask Me community members is starting a coffee shop soon, and she's going to start a campaign locally. She's discussed this with a local community group. So, you know, it can be small collective actions or it can be larger collective actions, but I said it's positive and hopes-based and action-focused, and it really is. And these couple of quotes are just a tiny fraction of the feedback we get monthly from our Ask Me community about how they're breaking the silence and challenging the status quo effectively. Somebody else I'll just mention quickly, I'm sure I'm running out of time. One of our Ask Me community is actually raising funds for a pilot scheme to introduce a domestic abuse coordinator within local GP surgeries. So the Ask Me course itself is very empowering, and then they're out there trying to empower others. So to just finish, what difference has Ask Me made? For me, it really is making that societal impact, that societal change, and it's reducing those barriers for help seeking. I think it addresses a very important gap in terms of prevention and early intervention. And I also feel quite strongly as well that we get returns from our Ask Me community every month, but what they tell us is going on the Ask Me training has made such a difference to them. They can't possibly capture everything they're doing and saying. And one of the Ask Me community recently said to us that she just didn't have enough room to capture everything she did, because the change in her was like saying, how many breaths have you taken today? That's how much of a change it's made to it, which I thought was very eloquently put. So thank you for having me today. I'm glad to talk to you about this, because I would encourage anybody in here, male or female, if you want to make a change, a societal change, The Ask Me course is available in person, online. I've got some posters over there. If anybody's interested in finding out more, please just scan the QR code. Thank you.
I thank you, Deb, and it's amazing to hear about that work, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in it from the room later on. It falls to me to for the final part of the event, and it's the Q&A. So we invite everybody to ask questions of the speakers, share your commitments and your work and what you're doing within your own organisation or bodies or groups to prevent violence against women. For those joining online, if you have a question or a comment, please add it to the Q&A function on your screen. And if you'd like to speak, and I ask this respectfully, can I ask you to keep your contributions to 2 to 3 minutes so that we can get as many people in as is possible. And Jane has to go in 5 minutes. So any questions to Jane, now's your chance.
I'm the Chief Executive of White Ribbon UK. It's great to be here today. And I'm sad as well that it's every year, but it's so important. And I think we've heard about the changes that have happened within the year. I go around England and Wales talking very frequently, and I'm so interested when I'm talking to workplaces about how people raise issues about being parents, concerned about what's happening in school, really challenging attitudes and how people respond to individuals such as Andrew Tate. It's so important. It shows the power of how workplaces are spaces where people can talk about these things, which is really, which is so vital. So an emphasis on we need to do that work. We've been working on creating resources for schools. I see some people here in front of me from Powys who've been sharing those. It's really vital. We are creating our resources using money that people have raised in memory of people who have women who have lost their lives. There needs to be more funding for this across the board. And just to say one final thing, it's been really great to tell everyone in England how brilliant the Sound campaign has been, and we need to say much more, and it's an example of how Wales has been completely leading the way.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Grimshaw from Welsh Women's Aid. I wanted to ask, we spoke about the fantastic policy that's coming out of the Welsh Government that we've been looking at, but I wanted to ask a question more of your day-to-day work, both Joyce and Jane, as both ministers and constituency MSs. So when you're doing your day-to-day work with whether it's your staff or whether it's the residents that come to you with casework and things like that, how are you able to set an example and put forward the cause of Valdresfi in Wales?
Well, perhaps I could just respond to the first point. Really great to see again you here today, the Chief Executive of White Ribbon UK, because I think you've tracked also the way we've tried to, the journey we're taking to try to address this fully. And I think what's come through really, I hope just from my few remarks today, is how much this is a cross-government and cross-sectoral responsibility. That's why we've got our blueprint working with particularly the criminal justice system in Wales, but also in terms of education. I've mentioned our curriculum spectrum and the resources from schools. And in fact, I mean, Deb, I think, you know, you're really pioneering work in terms of Ask Me. I'm sure it's having an impact on schools and young people and children as well. So just from me, in terms of obviously as minister, this is a key priority for me as minister responsible for the violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence strategy and implementing the legislation. I'm responsible for a large number of initiatives. If you know, one thing I wanted to say as minister, that we're also looking at this very much as a from an intersectional perspective as well. So looking at the experiences and engagement of Black, Asian, minority, ethnic women. BAUSO obviously is a key organisation that we fund and support. So we have the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan, work on disability. There's a new work stream on disabled women, for example, in our strategy. But I think also, and as Joyce will say, and I'll leave you, Joyce, to answer this point, it is really important from a constituency perspective in Bro Morgannwg. We've had a wonderful initiative from young women in the Vale of Glamorgan who did a survey about the experience of young women in the street. Plan UK International helped with this. Jamie, who actually was First Minister for a day some time ago, she led this. But then, of course, what happened when her survey showed the extent of harassment of girls and young women in the street, particularly, but also in schools, is that we then together we brought together the police, the local authority, cabinet members, and the youth service have played a key role in this, I have to say. And I think that's a really important message again, is that this is something where we need to work and support our youth service, and indeed educate our school governors, as well as teachers, and that's coming through in our work. But then obviously I'm very proud of our Women's Aid group in the Vale of Glamorgan as well, which has sort of started a new approach and a new initiative. So we work very closely together. And of course, I also Live Feel Free is clear in terms of putting out that awareness, but also guiding people and leading people to with casework to address these issues as well. So very good questions, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave you. But I'll see you, some of you all tonight at the vigil. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
In terms of the work I do, first of all, I think you asked in terms of as an employer, as well as, well, I have a very diverse group of people working for me. I also have the largest number of employers working for me, because they're all part-time, and I've allowed them to do the hours they want, as long as, you know, it fits in for them and for me. So, and we have some very clear policies in my office about respect. Not that I would need those policies, I have to say. So that leads me into the work that I've also done, and I mentioned it briefly in launching the joint project with Wales TUC and yourselves, Welsh Women's Aid, about work and respect in the workplace. And of course, I'm a commissioner here. That's part of my role here. And part of that is having very clear avenues about when things unfortunately do go wrong, and sadly they will go wrong, that those people feel listened to. That's the first thing, that they feel believed, and that the appropriate action is taken as quickly as is possible. And that protection is put in for both sides, whether that's the accused or the accuser. So that's what I do there. In terms more widely, of course, I get casework and I will deal with that, and you wouldn't expect me to discuss any of that. But I work under the respect agenda with school children. I've got an event on Thursday in Allenford, where it will be the school children who are leading it. I went to the school and they welcome the conversation. Their conversation is very different to our conversation. And I think that's important. How they see the threats from outside is very different to our interpretation. And the biggest challenge for any young person today, according to young people today, not me, is social media, is the fact that I mean, I'm quite old, as you can see, but when we shut the door, we made arrangements to meet people. They didn't come into our home with us. But now that can't be switched off. And it's causing huge mental anguish for those young people. But there's another side to that. Some of them don't realize they are causing anguish. They don't understand that a simple throwaway word can cause an awful lot of harm to somebody else. And the other problem with that is people pile in behind it and take it somewhere else, and it becomes uncontrollable. So those are the things we're going to be talking about on Thursday. And I welcome those conversations. And as I said, and we've got a number of schools, not just one, and a range of ages coming as well. And I'm hoping it'll be one of the most successful that I've done, and hopefully I'll take any learning from it, and I'll take the learning from those young people so that I can replicate it elsewhere. And of course, we will have their experts in the field ready for disclosure, because that is absolutely critical. You know, that if there is disclosure at any level, that they are supported.
Member of Wales Women, Throckmorton International Marine District and on Saturday, the Wales Assembly of Women held its annual conference, which celebrates research conducted by women on women and girls in the memory of Audrey Jones, who's one of our famous 100 women. One of the awardees this year is a young doctoral candidate called Emma Noble, who's working with Professor E.J. Reynolds. And her presentation to the Wales Assembly of Women was so resonating with what you were saying, Joyce. Basically, she's looking in the FE sector, further education post-16, and she's looking at the way in which stalking, changing passwords, being tracked by your boyfriend is normal. And the data that she shared with us was terrifying, actually. It's a very, very qualitative research project. It's using multiple methods, creative methods of data elicitation. But we were, you know, those of us of a certain generation were quite horrified that it was normal to give your boyfriend your phone. It was normal. If he spams me, I know he loves me, was the title of her paper. Now, Jane had normally presents the awards for us, but was unable to come on Saturday. But the annual conference of Wales Assembly of Women, we feed stuff directly to Jane. And I know that Professor E.J. Reynolds has been involved in the curriculum for personal and social relationship education and so on, but it's something that Emma Noble will be passing on her findings to you. But I just had to say, because your Respect conference with pupils is exactly the sort of thing that Emma Noble has been doing in the post-16 sector. But I had to give her a soundbite. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, got two hands. I'll take the one back and the one. Sorry. Oh, and there was another one, and another one over here. Got three hands.
Hi, I'm Bethan Richardson from the University of South Wales. Deb, I'm really interested in the Ask Me programme. We're currently rolling out Ask and Act and have been doing for the last year and a half. I'm interested to know how Change That Lasts might either complement that or perhaps be an alternative to elements of Ask and Act.
Yeah. Am I mic'd up, or can everybody hear me? So in terms of Ask and Act, I'm familiar with that. In that Change That Lasts model, there were 3 boxes on it. I talked a lot about the community because I think that's really relevant today. But within that whole systems approach, we have what's known as trusted professional. So Ask and Act is very much aimed at education or fire and rescue, health, people like that. And we have a strand in the Change That Lasts model called trusted professional, which is aimed at everybody else. So wherever we look, we are trying to take that societal approach. So that's really how that fits. But throughout, whether it's Ask and Act or Change That Lasts, it's all similar principles and understanding.
So is it possible that Ask Me would be appropriate for the wider university community, perhaps instead of Ask and Act Group 1?
It depends. So what I'd suggest is we are offering Ask and Act in some universities. So I know Cardiff University has had Ask and Act for the student community. We also offer Trusted Professional as well. So it's different but similar. And I think if you wanted to have a conversation and look at what, you know, look at the difference between courses, we'd be really happy to do that. There's strengths, there's pluses and minuses with both. It's similar but different. So I'm happy to have a conversation if that helps.
That would be great. Thank
Okay,
you.
fabulous.
Hiya, I'm Daisy Tipping. I'm the Women's Officer for Cardiff Students' Union. Currently, we're facing the epidemic of sexual violence in the university. In the 2020 to 2021 period, we had 575 reports to the university in a 28-day complaint window, and only 18 of them had an investigation done afterwards. We, as a students' union, are the second best in the country, and we are able to represent the voice of students. This can't just be a Cardiff issue. There are so many other universities in Wales that won't have the support of students that are able to speak out and able to try and change university, which is what we are trying to do. I've heard a lot about what you're doing in schools. Is there any possibility of you looking at something to do in universities and trying to change university policies to help female students that are coming to Wales because they think they're going to be safe and they're not?
I have worked with universities in the past. I have done, yet to be reported on, some evidence gathering about what a university is doing. So I'm going to hold that space for now. But I work with Aberystwyth University particularly, and I think there's some evidence in what I've just said coming out from that. Of course, I work with any university. I work with any organisation. I always am happy to do that. But I just want to hold on my little bit of research, because it will be out later this week or next week, and it will pull it all together and make some sense of it. But it has been done by a student, I have to say. So it'll be from that perspective. I'm more than happy to talk to you later and talk to the student union more generally. So is that okay?
Joanna.
Yes, please.
Hi. So yeah, so I think it's really important that we recognise, as in any institution, we have significant issues in universities. I think it was last week or the week before, some young women said that they had not had the experience that we would want them to have. Very recently, HEFCO, so the organisation responsible for funding, have consulted with myself and Welsh Women's Aid regarding their guidance, and we have given some feedback to that. I'm hopeful that with the new commission that will be taking over things, that we can persuade for a more formulated, I suppose, good practice perspective to be within that guidance. I think it's limited at the moment as to what we can guarantee and offer to each student in Wales, and that's not good enough. So I have engaged in those conversations. I will continue to engage in those conversations, and I have also approached Cardiff University to find out what's happened there. So to reassure you that it is within the line of sight, and we need everybody to be safe in the whole of Wales, and we also need people to understand things. And if we can't have those conversations in universities to create that change, both, you know, within the student population as a whole, and then for those who've had those experiences to have what they need, we're really not doing what we should do. So just to reassure you that it is, you know, can't promise change immediately, but it is something that we're working on at the moment.
That's great.
Hello, my name is Tina Farm. I'm Chief Executive of BALZO. Firstly, I want to acknowledge with gratitude the support we receive from Welsh Government, as alluded to by Minister Jane Hutt before she left. But I also want to remind this meeting that, notwithstanding the challenges that we've discussed today, the challenge of intersectionality faced by women from Black and minority ethnic communities, even here in Wales, is significant. I spoke to a speaker yesterday from the Asian community with regards to planning the Light the Candle event on Friday, which is being held at Llandaff Cathedral. And she said that even in our community, we know it's going on. We know domestic abuse is going on, but the women will not come forward. And that is us speaking in our own communities. So this is a plea that we need to work in partnership with you. We cannot do this alone, because though we strive, there are forces against us. There are forces that will keep this evil hidden. Thank you very much.
Lady over here and a lady behind you.
I want to expand a bit on what my colleague, I'm Jane and I want to expand on what Jane Salter said, because what came out of some of the talk about the research was that the lecturers in the further education system didn't feel that they had the right experience, the right training to manage some of the problems that the students were talking about. And I'm sure it's the same with the universities and the people in the NUS. And I'm a retired GP, and I am very aware there is a lot of abuse that happens that is not reported. And I did try and do a lot of work with the Royal College of GPs to try and get GPs to recognise abuse going on and manage it. But the trouble is, with a lot of these things, you go out there and who are you talking to? You're talking to the converted. What we need to get to is talk to the men, the misogynists that have been identified through recent surveys in the BMA, who are actually doing the abuse and not recognising it in the patients, the students, the friends, the colleagues. And that's why I'm so proud to be here today, but we still need to do more. And I'm sorry if I'm standing next to men and they're here, and that's really good, but we've got to keep on doing this and plugging it. And I'm very glad there are tools, but how do we get them to the people who are not listening and who are not there to support people? And we know that in schools, there's a huge amount of bullying and sexual abuse going on. And if we can't deal with that in the schools, how are we going to deal with it in the rest of life?
Thank you. Good to take that.
I think that's along the themes that I said. Thank you. I think but like I said, I think this is about us making ourselves vulnerable and having those conversations. So those of us who know this, and we are all in very different spaces, we need to turn to people and ask them and talk to them and not be afraid to do so. Now, that's a big ask, but we also know that some things that work, that me having a conversation with some young men is not going to land well. There's some work going on right now. There's a chap called Matt who wrote She's Not My Rehab. He's in Wales at the moment. And last week he spoke to some young boys in North Wales, and they wrote to him reams and reams and reams of positive responses. They immediately saw him as a role model. He had some really difficult points to make to them. He made really huge points. One of them went home and apologized to his mum for making her life so hard, for being resentful of her, for his experiences that he recognized were at the hands of his father, and that his father had created those things. And these boys were recognizing in this man somebody who represents something that I don't, and I'm sorry, but a lot of us in this room don't either. So we're not the ones to have the conversation. There are some men in the room who could do that and who might resonate with men and boys more, but we also need to find these others who can do this work, who will make themselves vulnerable, who will put themselves out there, and will have those challenging conversations about what it's like. I don't know what it's like. You know, I can recognise in my son, he feels threatened. So do his friends. The statistics from the Sound campaign tell us that. So us telling boys and men that they're bad doesn't work. Yeah, they feel that. That doesn't create a safe space for change. So we need to make those spaces safe so they can say, this is what it feels like to be like me right now. I recognise these things because that's also what it told us. They recognise that things have gone wrong, that are going wrong, that we are threatened. So we go from that place and we build on that and we build positively. And for those that are perpetrating harm, we have a different approach altogether, of course. We condemn that, we hold them to it, we do something about it. But we need to know the clear lines in that space. And if we encourage more boys and men to see that, I'm confident they will do it with us. So it's all of us doing what we can in this space. That's what's going to work as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just add?
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Can I just add something? Just on the back of what's been said, Ask Me is available for anybody. And that's free in funded areas. But I just wanted to quickly say about something else we've got that I didn't really have time to say. We have an initiative called Clear, and that's available in Cardiff and the Vale and now newly Cumtarth Maganwg. And that is for men who might have concerns about their attitudes and beliefs and want to talk it through in a safe space. So it's on an individual level. And again, it's a free course. It's a 6-week course. It can be done on an individual level. It can be done in group work as well, but it is that space for men who really want better relationships. And that's what we'd like to see at Welsh Women's Aid. We'd like everybody to have better relationships, female or male. So just to raise awareness of that, and it goes through particular themes over 6 weeks, and it's very skilled. And we know, a bit like Ask Me, it creates some culture change. And I didn't have time to go into it today, but I've looked at quotes from men that have been on Clear. And for men that actually self-refer, the completion rate is really, really good. So that's what we want to encourage, more self-referrers. But, you know, it might not make a difference with the current relationship, but they're quoted as saying things like, you know, I know next time I have a relationship, I'll be a better version of myself. And one particular quote that really impacted on me recently was somebody saying that he was starting to manage his emotions better. And a row had broken out with his current partner. And what the quote was he said, when I stood up, I realised I was being intimidating and I sat down again. And I think for that man and that woman and that family, that is absolutely huge that he understands the impact of his behaviour. So just to raise awareness of Clear, if anybody's interested.
Right, we've only got time, I'm afraid, 2. So I've identified the last 2. One person at the back, one person at the front.
Hi, my name's Nadilla. I'm down from the office of Kevin Brennan, the MP for Cardiff West, as well as the Shadow Minister for Victims and Sentencing. Kevin would have loved to have been here today, but unfortunately, as parliamentary business, they had to attend to in Westminster this morning. So I'm here on his behalf. I had a question mainly for the stakeholders regarding the upcoming, well, rather ongoing Victims and Prisoners Bill. And I wanted to know if you guys had any feedback on it, if you felt like it was doing enough to protect victims, or if you think it's rather lackluster. Any feedback on it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
That's a huge question. I think we could all say lots and lots and lots about that. In short, no, it doesn't go far enough. We know that. It has become a victim and prisoners bill for starters. So that tells you there's a diversification of thinking that I, for one, wouldn't support, and I imagine many people in this room, and there has been consistent feedback about that. We need a victims bill that talks about victims' rights and doesn't muddy the waters when talking about prisoners. Of course, they have rights, but we shouldn't be talking about them in the same space. Unfortunately, also hasn't reinforced the victims' code of practice, which reinforces those rights, and it doesn't bring them into law. So until it does things like that, it's not going to bring guaranteed rights for victims and survivors, and that's what we need. We have the National Victim Survivor Panel in Wales. And it's been consistent from them that they want to know the support pathways. At this moment in time, in no part of England and Wales could we guarantee a pathway from a door, whichever door that is, whether it's a hospital, a GP surgery, a school or wherever, for somebody to get support. That isn't because people don't want to do it, it's because we don't have the services that support it and we don't have the obligations that make that important. So until we have all of those things enshrined in law, it's not going to do what it needs to do. It's making some efforts, but what we know is those efforts get ignored unless people get told they have to do it. There's too many competing demands. Victims and survivors get put behind lots of other things. It's too easy to do that because it's too difficult to work out how do we make sure that everybody has what they need. Children in Wales deserve to have support as soon as we know that something's happened to them. The only way at the moment that we can guarantee they get that support is that they are so harmed, they have to reach the threshold of services that they should never, ever need to go near. So until we have all of those things sorted, which is within the gift of the Victims Bill, it's going to fail people. Anybody else wants to say anything?
I think the only thing I'd add to that, I agree with you, lumping them together doesn't really do survivors justice. And I think there's been a tendency over the last few years for risk to dominate every discourse. And I think if we had a separate bill for survivors that was more about needs led, I think we'd start to see some changes.
Okay, and finally.
Hi, I'm Anne. I'm here from the Farmers Union of Wales, and I just wanted to give a quick update to the room, because something that I have heard a lot is that we're sitting in an echo chamber, and I'm so proud of our president, Ian Rickman, who's a bit shy, for all of the work that Ian is doing on behalf of our organization in recognizing that we have an incredibly important role to play in our rural communities. And Ian is really driving for change. So I'm really pleased to say also that we're having training sessions with the Welsh Women's Aid next week for all of our staff and all of our officials, so that they recognize what falls under domestic abuse, what is involved and what they can do to help those people who are maybe victims, and to signpost to the right places. So I just wanted to say, an organization that is perceived to be very male dominated, those champions are there. And I just want to thank Ian for all of the work that he's doing there for the farming community.
And I'm quite happy to join in those thanks, because he's always there when we ask. And he's here again today and brought the sun with him, obviously, as you all have. Brought a little bit of sun in today. So we will have to close, and we are going to close now, but we are going to take a photo, and there will be a chance for some networking. So don't rush off unless, of course, you don't want to be in the photograph. And if you don't want to be in the photograph, and it's quite a serious question for lots of people, maybe some in the room, please, make sure that you excuse yourself from that. And we did change the agenda around a bit. That's because I didn't see the small type. So again, but it's over. It's to thank everyone who's here. It's to remind people again that there's an open invitation to Ammanford in Carmarthenshire at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Is to invite you all to come back again at 6 p.m. this evening for the candlelit service, which has captured the moment here in Cardiff really quite well. And I'm going to hand you back to Jill, who's going to close this part of the day, who will tell you where we go from here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joyce, for putting up with us here today. I'd firstly like to extend my thanks to the Minister for Social Justice, Jane Hutt, for making time in what I know is a very busy schedule. Thanks to Joanna and Deb for addressing the event and putting such valid and important points. And it's all about lived experience as well. Anyone that's able to share their lived experience is immensely helpful. We started off the day with horrendous statistics, But there are signs that we're moving forward. We're talking. We've always known there was a need for education in schools, colleges, universities, and it's good to hear that we are beginning to move forward on this. But you being here is the biggest thing of all, showing your commitment, sharing ideas, and working together to see how we can take this thing forward. The WI won't give in, certainly. I mean, we were campaigning about equal pay in 1915 and we're still at it. So don't think that we're ever going to lose sight of this problem. It's too important. But I think we can be positive about the future if we can all work and pull together and share experiences. I'll remind you that there is a candlelit vigil this evening on the steps of the Senedd at 6. Please do join us if you're available. Obviously, if you'd like to have a photo with the Not in My Name pledge board, which is up on the near the coffee, there'll be an opportunity for you to do so before you leave, if you didn't get a chance at the start. And also, if you'd like to have a look at the Not in My Name bags, then please do. But the group photograph we do need. So thank you all so much today for giving up your morning to be here. Your contributions are so valuable to everybody. So thank you all very much indeed. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
And if I can just say, I've had a message online from the Rail Delivery Group, their CEO, Jacqueline Starr, thanking everybody for their contributions, but also saying that they're coordinating activity on behalf of train operators across the UK. I have seen some trains with white ribbons on them, but not in Wales. I haven't seen them in Wales. Whether they're here, I don't know. They've got a strong anti-sexual harassment campaign that's starting with posters, comms and a virtual reality headset that brings to life how distressing harassment in many forms can be. And that's really what we're saying. And that's, again, another space that we need to get into, because most of the employees will be men. So, you know, again, it's gathering that momentum. And I could be naughty, I probably will be. I did sign the WI-Wales many years ago. I haven't invited them as yet to re-sign, but maybe that would be a really good thing for them to do. Got a few days. I haven't invited them, so I can't say anything other than that, but it struck me last night that I hadn't reissued an opportunity for that to happen, and I'm sure it will. And that's where the Not in My Name campaign name came from, that men aren't doing this in my name. So thank you all. The photo will probably be on the steps, I think, am I right? Because quite clearly we're all different heights and sizes, and if we use the steps, then we all are visible. Thank you. I very nearly bought the same dress as you, but I chose this one instead, because what would have happened is we'd been in the same